Did someone say fantasy? Get ready for another episode of Fantasy Football RPG with Mike and Evan. Let's get into the action.
Wizards, warlocks, and wonderful people. It is another episode of the Fantasy Football RPG podcast. We are 2 episodes away from our 100th, so we wanted to do something fun. And now we have Jake and Jeremy here with us. But before we talk about them, Evan, I want to talk to you. How's your head cold doing? Are you okay?
Well, yeah, I just woke up from an hour and a half long nap, so came on here just in time to see your smiling face.
I hope I make you feel better. But in case you guys didn't notice, it's not just me and Evan. We're also joined by Jeremy. You can find him on Twitter at PopesFFH. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing. I'm all right. I can't complain too much up here, living the Buffalo life. It's been hot, sticky.
Hot and sticky.
It's
probably less hot and sticky than it is here. Oh, hello, Niper Fox. Good to see you. Gabe Davis season. Jeremy, where do you work? What do you work on? Why should people listen to you?
That's a good question. I don't know. Where do I work now? I work at FTN, obviously. FTN Fantasy. That's where you can find all my articles, any of my ranking stuff like that. That's all over there. At the FTN Dynasty podcast. Definitely working on some college football stuff right now, doing some conference previews. Those are pretty cool articles, kind of just breaking down each team, short paragraph of each team in each conference. And then going to have some college football scouting reports, stuff like that for the 2025 class coming out sooner than later. Just gearing up for, some football on Thursday night.
Yeah.
So.
We are so close to football. I can feel it. For those of you that are longtime listeners, you should pop by in August. Evan and I are going to be going through the Big Ten, the SEC, and we'll have some fun guests on to talk about that stuff. Before we do that, Jake, hello.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Fantastic. I feel like I haven't seen you in a week.
Yeah, I think it was like 8 days ago, so that's pretty close. Or no, it was a week ago today. You're right. I'm wrong.
Man, it's been too long.
It really has.
Who are you? What do you write? What do you work on? Blah, 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 blah.
Yep, my name's Jacob Perry. You can find me on Twitter at Perry_FF. All of my fantasy content is through JWB. You can find it all on the JWB YouTube channel, as well as most of my stuff's on Twitter. So that's where you'll find 99.9% of my content.
Nice. You did a great little thread today about Nico Collins and Hunter Renfrow. I expected to be mad, but I walked away informed and excited.
Like I texted you, I should have just gone full engagement bait. Just said that Nico Collins and Hunter Renfrow were very similar through their first 3 years and just left it at that. And then like right now posted the follow-up thread. Probably would have been better engagement-wise, but you live and you learn,
Yeah, you would have gotten hundreds of thousands of views, but for the wrong reasons. But
You
without
could just
further
say that Sam Darnold might be the starter for the year. Just never be able to look at Twitter for the rest of the day.
You just got to mute that.
I don't know who would have did that.
That would be silly.
Speaking.
Who could that be?
Well, speaking of hot takes, we have other things to get to.
And now it's time for news and notes.
Tua Tagovailoa has signed a 4-year, $212.4 million extension. Evan, what would you pay to buy Tua in Dynasty?
Man, it doesn't really change his value too much for me. Going from that QB2, top-end QB2 type of production, top of QB2 type of value. Let's see. Give up the 104, assuming that Jaden Daniels is already off the board. Yeah.
So you're saying Tua over Drake May?
Oh, yeah. Tua over Drake May.
All right. Another quarterback got paid for the biggest extension in history. He tied with other people. But Jordan Love signed a 4-year, $220 million extension. Jake, you know what I'm going to ask you. What would you buy Jordan Love for in Dynasty?
Looking at my ranks, I realize I'm still a Jordan Love hater. That being said, I still would pay, a first plus for him. He's still, a good enough quarterback. I'm at quarterback 21, and just saying, it's a hot take season, baby. But no, I think that's a very fair rank, especially for how I do dynasty ranks. Like I'm typically never looking more than 2-year windows because as much as I would love to say we look 3 to 5 years out, 90% of people don't. So I don't rank that way because people, if I try and rank that way, people just get mad at me for that then. And so this is the middle ground we live in.
I want the points now. Don't even look at them, which is a mistake I made last December. I had Justin Fields and Sam Howell ranked way too high because they were scoring me points, and I was excited about it. But in other news, Taylor Decker signed a 3-year, $60 million extension. Did he report as eligible, Jeremy?
do think he did.
Okay,
I remember
that's the
correctly,
correct
right?
answer. He did, but the ref said no, and then they got a flag for it. And last but not least, right before the show popped, DJ Moore signed a 4-year, $110 million extension. I will just go ahead and take this one. I would put DJ Moore up there with the best receivers in this class. He's tied to Caleb Williams. It's probably going to take a hit on his production this year, but looking at 2025 and beyond, he's a locked and loaded wide receiver 1, and I love him. So, cool. Questions, comments, concerns?
DJ Moore's a wide receiver 1. I will take no comments at this time.
You're a Bears fan.
And now it's time to enter the dungeon.
All right, so this week we are going to do hot takes. That's why we did the dungeon instead of the normal happy, ha ha ha, let's talk about the meat and potatoes. Listen, this is a safe space. For the dozens of viewers that are listening, first of all, we love you. Like and subscribe, share to a friend. But also, you can't hold us accountable for these takes because this is a hot take episode. So I want everybody here to freely give and receive takes as you get them. The way that we're going to do this, I have a little doop-doo-doo-doo. Let me see if I can share my screen.
I believe in
Boom.
you.
How's that? You get to see all of Canva in its glory. P.S. Use Canva. And as you give a take, I'm going to write what you said, who said it, and then we'll vote on is it a super hot take, a hot take, medium, or mild. Guests, I would love for you to go first, so we'll start with Jake to give Jeremy some time, also because he's at the bottom. Jake, hit us with your first hot take so I can make fun of you.
Oh, this is perfect. And I actually have Jeremy being on here. It's a great guest to have for this hot take. But it's that Dalton Kincaid should be ranked closer to tight end 12 than he should be anything above 10.
Is this dynasty? Is this redraft?
Period.
Both. All right. First of all, you're silly. Second of all, what backing do you have for this?
It's the same argument I've really been making the entire offseason. He is much more a tight end in the mold of a old school, a Zach Ertz, Jason Witten type guy. Doesn't really offer a ton after the catch. Doesn't really separate better than 90% of options. Doesn't earn targets at an elite rate. And I know people will come back with the number of overall targets that he had last year. But we're talking about a guy who couldn't beat out Dalton Knox for a full-time job and then lost his full-time job to a not 100% healthy Dawson Knox in the postseason and is still splitting reps with Dawson Knox to this day. So he's just not going to be on the field enough and a consistent enough target for me to justify putting him in the range of game-changing tight end, which is really what, in my opinion, tight ends 9 and higher really all can be game changers. And I just don't see anybody else past my tight end 9, which is Kittle, at least in Dynasty. I don't see anybody else past them being a true game changer at the position.
Interesting. Evan, I have an important question. Do you like Dalton Kincaid more, or do I like Dalton Kincaid more?
I have a feeling you like Dalton Kincaid more.
Okay. I think this is a super hot take because, listen, vacated targets aren't real, but Dalton Kincaid is the number one option in this offense. Or it's Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel doesn't move me. I think Dalton Kincaid is due for a monster year. This is a super hot take, but it's a safe space. So I vote we put it in super hot. Jeremy, where would you like to put it?
I'd say, I mean, you could leave it wherever you want, but I'd say hot. I don't disagree totally with Jake. I like Dalton Kincaid, but the fact of the matter is it's the Bills. That's why he conceded targets as a rookie. It's historic. They did the same thing with James Cook. They've done the same thing with everybody and anybody that comes in that's a rookie. It's just the way McDermott works. So I think that's part of it. But I totally can get behind kind of what you're saying, Mike, is that there is no real option. And if they continue with their rookie profile, I guess we'll call it, as far as they kind of bring these guys in, like maybe Keon Coleman doesn't get used as much as we thought. And like you said, is it Curtis Samuel? So I think that they're going to give him an opportunity. I think, honestly, Dalton Kincaid being on the field helps. Or Dawson Knox being on the field helps Dalton Kincaid. It's probably not the first time I'll do that this year. But I do think that it kind of gives you the ability for him to play as more of a receiver than actually being the inline blocker. So I don't think it overly hurts him as bad. But I could see, I don't know if I'm fully on him being, at least this year, maybe a top 5 guy. I think he can get there. So I would still say it's hot, but I don't know if super hot.
Not super.
So I could see him being like,
Just
I could
hot.
see him being like 7, like where he's ranked right now, at least on Fantasy Pros, like their ECR, like 7 maybe, But I think he has top 5 for each. Truthfully, I just think that the way they're going to use him.
Okay. Well, we'll put it in the tongue-tingling kind of hot status.
Yeah, right on the edge there.
Jeremy, the floor is yours. What is your next take?
Why does the floor have to be mine? All right. We'll just start right off the bat. I will say that Drake London does not finish as a top 15 receiver this year.
Ooh, what makes you say that?
So, although I love Drake London and I am all in for hoping that happens, I think that we have seen a guy that saw a significant target share despite having terrible quarterback play and kind of never really got much of anything going. He's kind of similar to what Jake said. Yeah, he's a little bit more yards after the catch guy, but not totally. We still have Kirk Cousins, although great. We're seeing a guy coming off an Achilles injury. Maybe it doesn't affect him that much, but it's an offense that I still think they're going to struggle to score. I don't think the Falcons are going to be as good as everybody expects them to be. I do think that without the touchdowns, he's just not going to be able to get into that territory of being that top 12 asset that we're kind of drafting him at, especially in redraft or even paying for him in Dynasty at the moment. So I just feel like he's kind of going to end up into that category that kind of Chris Olave falls into. Another guy that's a productive receiver, may get 1,000 yards, but he's just not going to get the touchdowns. That's going to put him up into that top 15 and kind of pay off the price you're paying to get him right now.
Okay. I think this is a perfectly reasonable take. If you think he finishes somewhere in the 18 to 20 range, I would love that because he's historically a wide receiver 3 or a 4. This is the opportunity for him to be, take the step forward. But now we're drafting him in a place where even if he takes a huge step forward and he's the wide receiver 15, we're disappointed. So between the underlying metrics being good, not great, I support this. I think this is a medium take. Evan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's borderline medium and hot because everybody gets all hot and bothered over Drake London right now. Everybody's out here with their pitchforks trying to tear him up, trying to champion him up, and we just haven't seen the production. Yeah, the offense has been stagnant. Everything has gone wrong that could possibly go wrong from a coaching standpoint. For this offense, for Drake, still has Kyle Pitts there, still has Bijan. Is
don't forget about Tyler Algier.
Oh yes,
I forgot to toss that in there.
Apparently,
he's gonna have a big role.
Load. Yeah.
The BYU great right there.
Yeah.
So you put all of that together, and top 15 is just a little rich. I can see right around that fringe wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. That's kind of the ceiling that I'm expecting out of him. So, yeah.
All right. I think you either just punched your microphone or you dove underwater, but I support that. Jake, as an unbiased, you're a Bears fan. You don't really have a lot of pull in Atlanta. You don't really care that much about them. Was the problem with Drake London, was it Arthur Smith? Was it quarterback play? Was it a little bit of both? Where would you put the problem with Drake London being cheeks for fantasy the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's definitely not been Drake London. As was kind of brought up already, like the underlying metrics and everything about Drake London as a receiver have been phenomenal to say the least. When we look at guys who can come out and earn a 30% target share as a rookie, pretty rare. Guys who not only earn that, but earn a 30% target share in the red zone, really rare. Guys who are top 2 in target rate overall as rookies, pretty rare. He's just done so many things at such a high level. And, if you look at like his reception perception, he's basically 70 percentile or better across the board. Like I truly just think Arthur Smith's scheme will never truly give us super productive wide receivers. I mean, even if we saw I think we all can agree that AJ Brown is a superior talent to Drake London. They play wide receiver differently, but even AJ Brown's best seasons with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator were not that good. And then we saw him get to, a Shane Steichen offense with a better quarterback, and we saw what can happen there. Now we're getting Drake London, albeit, not the yards after the catch guy, not the guy who's going to be a pseudo Cooper Kupp, Puka in a Sean McVay style offense. But we're talking about a guy who can earn volume with the best of them, and even just like a reasonable increase in volume for the offense. Keep his same efficiency stats and throw in a couple more touchdowns, and we're talking about, a potential top 15 guy. I don't think I think kind of that medium hot range is perfect for it where we have it, because to some people it's going to be a super hot take. To most, I think there's more Drake London haters out there than there are lovers and truthers at this point. Yep. He's seemed like a fun guy to hate on this offseason, but yeah, I would love to see a top 12 season out of London. I told you on Twitter today, I think it could happen, but it also wouldn't shock me if it doesn't.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. We will keep it in the medium to hot range. Evan, would you like to go, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, so I can take that if my mic sounds better for you, Mike.
You sound great.
Okay, fantastic. Then I'm going to go with a two-parter here. All right,
Okay.
So Anthony Richardson wins Comeback Player of the Year, and the Colts win the AFC South.
I wish this was a hot take to me, but you know that I love Anthony Richardson, so I can't be unbiased about this. So, Jeremy, I'll throw it over to you. How hot is this take, and what feedback do you have for him?
I don't know if he can get comeback player of the year. Colts winning the AFC South, I wouldn't put it past them. I don't think it's that tough, let's be honest. The Jaguars are the Jaguars. They're going to Jaguar. And then Houston would be their biggest issue. And I could see a little bit of a issue there.
Titans.
But
Little feisty Titans?
Yeah, the Titans will get them once. They're all going to it's going to be a mess. Something's going to happen for every one of these teams. I'd say it's hot. I don't know if the Colts, the more I sit here and think about it, I don't think they're beating Houston unless there's an injury. And I don't think they'll be close with the Jaguars. I feel like the Jaguars are going to underperform this year. So I'll say they're probably maybe second. So I'll say it's hot. I don't think they can get there. And I don't think AR wins Comeback Player of the Year.
Anthony Richardson is elite. He's going to run for 1 billion yards. And if a quarterback is good coming off of an injury, Comeback Player of the Year could definitely be important. Listen, Sniper Fox made a great point. The Jags have Gabe Davis now. So does that move you in any way, Jeremy?
I mean, no. I think he'll be their receiver too. I'm just saying if that's going to be the spicy take. But
okay? Well, you stole mine, so I'll do a different one.
No, you could take it. No, I'm just saying. I agree. I think that it's a good sign for the Jags. But
yeah. I mean, your point, Mike. Though there's a ton of quarterbacks that are coming off of injury this year.
Yeah.
We have Rodgers for Comeback Player of the Year. Yeah. You have Burrow for Comeback Player of the Year. You have Cousins for Comeback Player of the Year. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of quarterbacks to choose from that could all do it. So,
okay. Well, we'll leave that at just hot. And if this is a safe space, I need you all to assure me that this is a safe space before I say this.
I would just like to say I think that's a super hot take.
Well,
I think both halves of it are super hot. We already brought up, Burrow was hurt last year. Deshaun Watson, whatever you think about him, if he finds his old form, he's got a good shot at it. Cousins didn't even play a full season. That's not even considering guys like Nick Chubb could come back out of nowhere. Trevon
J.K.
Diggs,
Dobbins, baby.
Back. Yeah, there's so many good players who were hurt last year that part is a little bit spicier to me, especially because being that he's a rookie last year, only played 4 games.
Justin Jefferson, they'll probably find a way to give it to him.
Yeah, there's so many guys who didn't play full seasons last year, and I think the Colts are probably the 3rd best team in that division. It's a much better division than it's been in years past. So I still think they're an above 500 team, but they're not beating Houston in my mind.
All right.
Yeah, a lot would have to break right. At first, I was kind of okay with saying it, and then I think it into my head, and I was like,
I love the call out, though. And listen, no one will ever see this ever again. I'm definitely not going to tweet out this graphic as soon as we're done. But moving on. Oh, I need to put Evan's name next to it. You guys probably want to.
I was going to say, what does he get amnesty?
Yeah, no,
not fair.
No, nobody's going to come at him. He runs an anonymous Twitter account.
But it doesn't matter.
To assure you
Everybody
previously,
hates me.
Mike, I love you.
Okay.
To reassure you, Mike, this is a safe space.
If this is a safe space, listen, I'm going to throw this out there. I think Gabe Davis is the wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville. I love Brian Thomas. I think that he's an amazing talent. But NFL coaches, time and time again, are stupid. And Gabe Davis is a great run blocker. They're looking to get ETN the ball. They want to make a push. They'd rather just have the veteran that they know what it is. And I could see Gabe Davis, he's not going to be good for fantasy. But he's going to be more annoying to Brian Thomas truthers than we want him to be. So I think he is the wide receiver 2 in Jacksonville. Roast me.
I think it's important that you caveated wide receiver 2 and not second best receiver on the team, because Evan Ingram is still better. Christian Kirk is forever my favorite player. So both of those guys will be better fantasy receivers than him. But Gabe Davis being like the starting wide receiver in 2 wide receiver sets wouldn't shock me.
I think if we layer this just by snap count, it's a home run. If we make it by yards, a little more questionable.
I would agree.
I would disagree. I think that Gabe Davis is going to be their deeper threat guy. He's going to be on the field, 2 wide receiver sets. Like you said, he's a, as much as we want to hate on Gabe Davis, there were times he was open in Buffalo and Josh wouldn't throw to him. There are times that he missed him. There are plenty of times miscommunications between players, and it happens. You know, you can point the finger whichever direction you want to go. There has been some drops that I've seen, at least in camp so far, from Davis, but I think, much like Jake had said, he's a better run blocker. I think he's going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. It's going to be him. It's going to be Christian Kirk. Brian Thomas probably operates as a third, kind of, maybe he gets in there every now and then, has some splash plays, but I think overall Gabe Davis probably is the consistent wide receiver 2 in this offense. And I really think that there's going to be good fantasy viability. I know a lot of people want to stick it to him and say he's a boomer bust guy. And I can even sit there to argue to say that maybe that's just Josh and his offense. Yeah, the Bills passed a lot, and yeah, he saw a lot of targets, but it was very inconsistent targets, and it wasn't all the time. And the role that he was used in was an inconsistent role. If the Jaguars, who throw the ball just as much, will probably still be able to get some good viability out of Davis, and heavens forbid they use him a little differently, and he's not just a deep shot type of guy. Maybe there's a chance that there is more consistency from Gabe Davis this year than we have seen in years past. I just don't think that we should cast him as a guy that's just this boomer bust guy. It's likely he could be, but I just think that there should be a little bit less of that, just because it is a new offense with the same volume passing, etc. So for me, I don't think it's that hot, because I truthfully believe it as well. I don't think that Brian Thomas comes in and takes over as much as everybody wants, because everybody's really in on this receiver class, and it's a good class, but I don't think we're going to get as much production from these guys in year 1 as a lot of people expect.
I hope that Twitter has the same mentality about this. So I'm gonna throw it all the way down in the mild takes. But
oh no, I've already been roasted on Twitter for this.
It's gonna be a great time. Mike Zimmelman brings up a great point. He's reunited with the Bills wide receiver coach. He could bounce back. Like, familiar staff, a new quarterback, a change of scenery. I'm not saying that he's going to be like a top 24 wide receiver in fantasy. I'm just saying that he's going to be the wide receiver 2 in snaps and probably in production, compared to Brian Thomas, which is unfortunate because Thomas rules.
I will forever hate Gabe Davis. So be that as it may, maybe Josh just missed him when he was open a couple times because he just wasn't that used to him being open. Thoughts?
Oof.
Could be that too.
Oof.
Unless you're the Chiefs' secondary, then they just leave him wide open.
Yep. They refuse to cover him.
They're like, you know what? If you want to let Gabe beat you, we'll go for it. But that being said, I also think that what Gabe Davis excels at as a wide receiver is what they tried to have Calvin Ridley do last year, sometimes very ineffectively. So I tweeted it way earlier, in the offseason when Gabe signed, that I think Gabe is a better fantasy option on Jacksonville than he was in Buffalo.
Okay. Well, I hope we all see it so that this looks better in retrospect. We're back up to the top of the order. Jake, give me your next take.
All right, this one is going to be super, super spicy or not spicy at all, which is kind of the point of this whole thing.
We love that.
I think that there's truly no better value in redraft. I'm waiting for the full typing because this is suspenseful.
Than?
Curtis Samuel.
Listen. I agree, so I can't. I think this is the least.
Jake
least
just looked at the
spicy
Bills
take.
roster and goes, "Yo, hot take season."
No, I've been a Curtis Samuel guy, but so my takes do kind of tie together in that sense. Where if you look at Curtis Samuel's best year in the NFL, his offensive coordinator was Joe Brady, and where did Joe Brady find the most success using Curtis Samuel in that season? Was in the slot, which is where Kincaid, in theory, is going to take most of his snaps if it's anything like last year. But I think Curtis Samuel is the most likely option to be the wide receiver 2 in that offense, but used in a more productive role than we ever saw Gabe Davis used in. And if my brain works in any way, shape, or form, it's I love Curtis Samuel, and I love the Chicago Bears and beer. So if you combine all three of those together, Curtis Samuel is not a Chicago Bear. I have not had any beer tonight, so I have to just root for Curtis Samuel as one of the best redraft values in the world.
I have no notes. I think this is a great take. That's why I put it all the way at the bottom of the mild, because he could be Josh Allen's wide receiver 1.
He could be.
And if he is even close to that, he already has a productive season under his belt. He is reunited with an offensive coordinator that knew how to use him. He does all of the things that Joe Brady wants him to do. Like, I think this is a very mild take because I think it's clear as a day to anybody that watches football. Does anybody disagree? Because I would love to move it up, but I can't. It's just a good take, and I think we should all be drafting him probably 10 spots higher.
I'll say it's medium, and the only reason is there's probably a better value.
There's going to be some running back somewhere.
There always is, and that's why I said this was. I would expect this to lean more on the super hot side of things because we saw the value options last year coming out of redraft, like Achane turned into a great value, Puka, like guys who were undrafted, and then just Trey McBride, guys who just came out of nowhere and just absolutely smashed. But if we're like just looking at redraft ADP this year, I don't think there's been as many clear values as there have been in previous years. In my opinion. So for me, Samuel is one of those guys where he's probably going to fall farther in drafts than most, in most drafts. But I think Samuel, can sneakily be really, really good in this offense. I mean, even last year in Washington, he had a 24% red zone target share. The Bills are going to be in the red zone a whole lot more than Washington was.
Fair.
Yeah, I think that Samuel, like I said, I think it's a good call as far as like potentially being the best receiver, we'll say, with the Bills. But I just think that there's so many, like you said, Jake, like it's not clear at the moment that there's these values, but there's good value right now, especially at running back, like you said. It's just which one hits. You know what I mean? Like they're all kind of in this purgatory, and it's kind of like somebody's probably going to be better than even Samuel at his best. I think with the way that this offense breaks down, I think there's too many receivers that even some of the Bills receivers, they just might not be that valuable to us in fantasy. I think ultimately you're not going to get that like Stephon Diggs or Gabe Davis production. Like I think you get a pretty even target share between Samuel, Shakir, Coleman, Kincaid, Knox, Cook, Ray David. Like I think they're just going to go through the Packers of last year. I think they're just going to kind of just let Josh feed whoever the hell's open and just make some plays for us, as opposed to leaning on one guy, because they've seen that this leaning on one guy method hasn't worked for them. It's created great teams, but when it matters, teams will be able to shut down Diggs, and then they were in trouble. And so, like, I think they're trying to go a different route as to, hey, we've got multiple playmakers. Yeah, none of them are the guy, but if you put your top corner, say on Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman's going to make a play for us, or Kincaid's going to make a play for us. So I think that's kind of what's behind it, at least in their head. So I just don't know if they're even going to be super valuable, truthfully.
Any concern that Khalil Shakir becomes the more volume guy?
No.
All right, next question. Jeremy, give me your next take.
All right, I got to go to the well here. The jersey, you can see part of it in the back corner there, but this is super hot. So, are you ready for this?
Can't wait.
J.K. Dobbins plays all 17 games. And we'll toss in there, and finishes as a top 15 running back. Super hot.
I'm putting this all the way up in the super hot category.
Yeah, it's super hot because just letting him play 17 games is super hot because I love the kid, but unfortunately injuries have been the end of him.
The history of players coming off an Achilles tear is not pretty.
No.
But if anybody's going to beat it, J.K. Dobbins?
He says he's fully healthy. That's good enough for me.
He says he's fully healthy, but I also see one of his legs looks like one of Jake's legs, and one of his legs looks like one of Evan's legs. Like, he's just imbalanced completely. He's going to be running like a 1940s running back named Two Shoes McGee. Like, that imbalance
like
cannot be
Daddy
good.
and Happy Gilmore.
Exactly.
Hardly to the left.
If this happens,
I think in the
I'll be very
offense,
happy.
yeah, I mean, me too. But I think in the offense, somebody's gonna eat in this offense. Everybody's ready to give it to Kamani Vidal. I love Kamani Vidal. I think that he's an interesting prospect. But outside of injury, I don't know if he gets there. Truthfully, I think if Dobbins can stay healthy, he's going to be the guy you want here. Gus Edwards obviously brings the touchdown intrigue. But he's also another guy that hasn't really been that productive. And it depends on how bad this injury affects Dobbins. Like you said, the numbers are stacked against him, and you're really betting against all odds here. But it's going to be an offense that Harbaugh and Roman are going to pound the rock. As much as we want to try to make Ladd McConkey, Palmer, Johnson, whoever you want to make, like super high volume kind of passing guy because the defense is going to be bad, they're probably still not going to. They're just going to pound the rock, and that's going to be their approach to making their defense better, much like he did in Michigan. Much like Roman has in the past. So I think they're going to kind of be somewhat of a committee, but I do think that Dobbins probably leads the way and would be the most viable if he can play every single game.
I almost muted you at the Ladd McConkey slander because we won't stand for that on this channel. We are the dads for Ladd. But
Ladd.
Listen, somebody's going to get the volume here. My money is on Gus Edwards. He is perpetually the running back that just... We don't want him to get volume. We don't want him to be efficient. They always make the cutoff for the graphic. They're like, best yards per game in 58 games played because Gus Edwards has played 57 because he's just always been good. So I'm betting on Gus Edwards. I'm not going to bet on an Achilles tear. That's why I put this in the super hot. If somebody thinks this is less hot, I would love to hear it.
I mean, the 17 games alone makes it a super hot. Like that.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
that's what I make it super hot. It's not even on the chart.
When I do my projections for running backs, I cap them at 15 games. Like, I'm just assuming running backs are going to miss some time. And where I struggle to see the true upside of him as a top 15 guy is if there's anything we've seen out of Greg Roman offenses, if there's anything we've seen out of Harbaugh's offenses when he was at Michigan, it's that they very much do use a split running back room. Like, there's a reason that we'd have random Justice Hill weeks at times when Roman was in Baltimore. And then you look at, Michigan's history, even over the last few years, like looking at 2021, Hassan Haskins had 270 carries. Quorum had 140. Go to the next year. Quorum had 247. Edwards had 140. If you look at, 2023 last year, it's, a lot of the same thing, 258 carries to 119 for Edwards. Like, they're going to use a split room, and I feel like their running back room is going to be very much like we were just talking about with Buffalo's wide receiver room.
Yes.
Where they're all going to be solid enough that, like, if that's a flex guy for you or like a RB2 that you're starting in a pinch, you don't feel bad about it. But, like, if you're counting on that guy to be one of your guys, I feel like you're going to get disappointed more often than not.
100% fair. I think we have roasted this one enough. I'm going to leave it all the way at the tippy top for super hot. Evan, give us your next take.
Yeah, so I got one that my mouth's a little burning after my last take, a pretty hot take over there. So I think I need to cool it off a little bit, or what I think is cooling it off a little bit.
Just
here.
Give us a reasonable one.
Yeah. Dak Prescott, triple kit here. He's going to lead the league in yards, passing touchdowns, and attempts.
No notes. I think that's a very reasonable take, and I think it's way down here.
I was gonna say that might be the most mild take that we've gotten
Ugh.
so far. But I'm also I'm notoriously higher on Dak than pretty much everybody else. So
I think he's
my
going to lead
opinion
in
is
passing yards, attempts, and touchdowns. You said.
Yep, yards, attempts, touchdowns. I mean, you look at last year. Jared Goff, Mahomes both had more attempts. You look at last year, Goff and Tua had more yards, and then touchdown-wise, he led the league in touchdowns last year.
So you're just drafting him everywhere in best ball and redraft right now, right?
I mean, yeah, if I have a chance to draft him, I'm drafting him relatively high right now because this team is not going to have a running game. Their offensive line got worse. They're going to need to get the ball out of the hands.
Yep.
Their running backs, are just a bunch of plotters. They're going to average as a group less than 4 yards a carry.
Yep.
So, yeah, going to have to spread the ball around.
I think it's a very reasonable take, so I have no way to roast you. I agree almost completely. I think that this has the potential to look silly if he gets hurt week 4. But other than that, he's known to sling it. CD Lamb is certified good at football. And Niper thinks that he leads in interceptions. We'll call that the Triple Crown.
I'll say this. I don't know if he gets... I don't think he gets it. I think the touchdowns will be harder. I think that Zeke is there for a reason. I think in the red zone, they're going to look to run a little bit more and maybe tone those down a little bit. I also don't know if the yards are there. CD Lamb had a great year, but that was are we sure he's going to repeat that? You know what I mean? Kind of year. It was really good, but can he consistently do that? And that's all he's got there. I would almost bank on Tua, who has Tyreek Hill and had Jalen Waddle, who was injured for half the season. You know what I mean? There's some more explosion. Same thing with even Goff again. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Laporta. There's a lot of weapons for me. Dak just, unless CeeDee Lamb has another really, really, really strong year, how's he going to get there? Jalen Tolbert, as much as I love him, isn't gonna do it. Brandon Cooks is kind of, and we just said the running backs, if we're expecting them to be terrible in the run game, I mean they're probably not that much better in the passing game as far as production and yardage goes. So I don't think it happens, but I mean it's within reach. I wouldn't say it's hot, but I don't think it's that cold where you guys have.
You think it's less cold than the no better value in redraft?
Yeah, I think it should go in between Gabe Davis and no better than Curtis Samuel. That's my take, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe even ahead of Gabe Davis, but I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't see it. That's all. Right. I think it's possible, but don't see it actually coming to fruition.
Jake, you got one more thing on this.
Yeah. Elite first name haver Jake Ferguson is going to step it up this year, and that's where them yards are coming from, baby.
Oh, man. All right, that's enough of that. I want to paint you guys a word picture. I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. If a quarterback threw for 4,500 yards and ran for 600, would that be the MVP?
No.
What if he took a team that was essentially a dumpster fire in the NFL and made them a playoff team? Is that the MVP?
No.
Nah.
Well, I think Kyler Murray is going to be the MVP, and the Arizona Cardinals win a playoff game. They don't just make the playoffs, they win a playoff game. Thoughts?
See, it's the MVP part that makes me struggle a little bit to agree as much as I love Kyler. But I don't really think it's that hot of a take either. I think it's probably the most middle ground take we've made so far.
Well, that's good. I have a spot for it then. Does anybody think it's spicier or less spicy?
I think so. I don't think Kyler's got MVP talent in him. I don't really think he does. He'd have to. Kyler Murray would
Texas
have to.
Football?
He would have to. They'd have to make the Super Bowl for Kyler Murray to win the MVP. 100%.
Well, they take regular season only into consideration, allegedly.
No, they don't.
The voting's done before the playoffs start.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I don't know. I don't see it. I think that if the Cardinals are that good, too many people would be like, well, it's Marvin Harrison, or somebody else. I mean, I know the MVP is like a Kyler Murray Murray or like not a Kyler Murray award. I guess he would win
Quarterback award.
the quarterback award, but I think that they could kind of link it to say, well, he had Marvin Harrison. Truthfully, like I think you'll see some other players step up at the quarterback position that might be better this year. For example, like C.J. Stroud, Josh Allen. You'll see some of those guys probably be closer.
Never heard of him.
Patrick Mahomes, maybe. They'll probably try to give it to him or something.
When Kyler puts up those numbers, because he has the best wide receiver he's ever played with, he finally has a weapon.
He had like DeAndre Hopkins in like his prime. Come on.
Okay, well,
give Hopkins a little credit.
All right, we'll give Hopkins credit. The second best wide receiver he's ever played with, plus Trey McBride, plus James Conner, plus Trey Benson, plus an improved defense, plus an improved O-line. There's a lot of things that make the Cardinals more feisty than people are giving them credit for, and I think the winning a playoff game should get more credit.
It's a tough division, though, man. You
They
think
don't
they
have to
get in the playoffs? You think 3 of them make the playoffs?
I think 2 of them make the playoffs.
Oh, so you're kicking the Rams out?
Yeah, sorry, Matt Stafford. Time's coming.
We'll see.
Defense can't get better with Aaron Donald retiring.
That's true.
What if it does?
That would be
hilarious.
Ridiculous. But all right, is everybody happy with where this is placed? Otherwise, we're going to go one more round and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Jake, give us your last take of the evening.
My last take of the evening is that Justin Fields wins the starting job out of camp over Russell Wilson.
That's a fact already.
It might be, but right now, I think a lot of
Woo! Let's go. Justin Fields, baby.
Let's go, baby.
All right, so you think Justin Fields is the starter out of camp?
I think he's the starter out of camp, and as a result, he's a top 8 quarterback in points per game.
I'm just putting top 8 quarterback. You don't get points per game.
Works
You
for
just
me.
get top 8 quarterback.
Fine with it.
Another take that I cannot be unbiased on because I'm a Justin Fields believer and a Steelers fan. So, Evan, please roast Jake for me.
I mean, roast him. If Eric was here, he would be on the Justin Fields train, except he's not a Bear anymore, so he'd probably say he sucks. Justin Fields still needs to figure out how to throw the ball. That is one thing that Russell Wilson used to be able to do. Can he still do it right now? Maybe. Who knows? It's been a minute since he's had to actually properly throw a football. But their offensive line is slowly getting better. The wide receiver core is an absolute mess. Probably going to run the ball a ton, but would it not be fun to just picture a pistol college-style offense with 2 running backs in the backfield and Justin Fields?
Evan, I need to paint you a word picture. Arthur Smith had the Pittsburgh Steelers lining up in 13 personnel. For those of you at home that don't know what 13 personnel is, 1 wide receiver and 3 tight ends. So they had Justin Fields back there with Najee Harris next to him. If that's not a nightmare for you, whatever, live your life. Then they have Darnell Washington, who's basically a left tackle. Connor Hayward, who's a fun, feisty little move tight end. Pat Freiermuth, and George Pickens. If that's not a group of 4 elite blockers, I don't know what is. So, read option. It's back.
It's very shades of early on Lamar Jackson. Him and Derrick Henry. You had Mark Andrews. You had Patrick Ricard out there playing fullback. And then you had Hollywood just running post routes and dropping the ball. It was awesome.
Yeah. What more do you need? Although Pickens is going to catch him, so that's the difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on that. But,
well, wait for my next take. All right. Well, we'll put this in the medium. I think this is medium to us, but I think it's super hot to everybody else.
It's super hot. There's no way Fields wins that.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie to you.
Russell Wilson's dealing with a calf strain.
Outside of injury, as much as we want to make Justin Fields struggles as far as he's a really good deep ball thrower, and that's all the highlights I'm seeing. We've always known that. That's always been his go-to, but it's in between, the 30-yard attempt and the 5-yard attempt that he's going to struggle. So,
who's
outside of an injury, I know it matches up, it does, but I don't think so. I think they give it to Russ. They're not ready to rebuild, so they don't want to lose games. They'll give it to Russ. Russ can do enough to not lose games, so they'll be fine, and they'll go, 9 and what did that be nowadays? 9 and
8.
7, 9 and 8.
Yeah. If you weren't with us at 10 and 7, don't come crawling back at 9, 8 and 1. All right.
Yeah, they'll be somewhere in there. They'll make
I
the
could have made
playoffs.
a
They'll squeak in or something.
I could have made a take for either quarterback here because I don't think Russ is as bad as people made him out to be last year too. Yeah. So I really could have gone either way. The Steelers might have be in one of the best situations in terms of quarterback to backup quarterback, being able to run unique plays with Fields as the backup there, where it's he can unleash the deep ball, but he could also gash us for 80. So if he's on the field, we got to be careful of a lot of things. Yep. So Steelers
it'd be wild to see. It'd be wild to see them both on the field. Russ under center, Justin Fields is the running back in 13 personnel. And they got to decide. They got to decide. Is Fields going to run or is he going to unleash it to Pickens? That would be fun.
Fields as the wide receiver in 13 personnel, running a double end around, and then Russ
with a 50-yard bomb.
Yeah, if that happens,
50-yard bomb to Darnell Washington.
if that happens at any point during the season, I will probably commit to doing some heinous act to my body, like a Justin Fields tattoo. I'm just saying.
Okay, we're going to hold you to that. You need to get some... It doesn't have to be specifically Justin Fields, but something Justin Fields-esque.
I'm going to get a tattoo, the one of him sliding across the water.
Which one?
Nah, the one where he's actually sliding.
Jeremy, hit us with your next take.
All right, we'll go actual football. We won't go fantasy. I'm gonna say the Bills win the Super Bowl.
Oh,
I'm taking it. I put the bet in already today, so I'll ride with it. It's gonna be a hot take for people because they think they're gonna be absolutely terrible. But I'm gonna say that the mix of Joe Brady and the lack of having the threat of trying to force it into Diggs gets them over the hump. Defense is better than people think, and they managed to get there. I think getting there would even be super hot, but
I think this is a super hot take because Patrick Mahomes still exists.
Yeah, they're going to get there. They'll do it. They'll find a way. They were 13 seconds away before. They'll get there.
Is it hotter than Justin Fields?
No, the Justin Fields one is hotter. We'll put that up here.
Yeah. Get that.
Does Justin Fields get the JK play 17 games? That's the biggest thing. I just want to leave with at least the top one. That's all that matters. That's why
you can have it. I'll give you that one. There's no way J.K. Thomas is playing 17.
That's not real. But Bills winning the Super Bowl. Part of me wants to put this in medium because you have Josh Allen. It rules. You have a good defense.
Von Miller supposedly looks like Von Miller of old now. Another year.
Yeah, they've been saying that every year for 7 years. Yeah. The Bills are a good team. The Chiefs are a better one, and I hate them. So,
hey, if Keon Coleman's good, this might be.
If Keon Coleman's good, let's move this way up here. Whoop. Hottest take: Keon Coleman is good. Listen, the Bills are good, so I will give you a medium take in my mind, but we have too many medium takes, and I think this is probably less hot than the AR take.
100%.
But
I
still
would agree.
Spicy.
It's hard for me to argue against any solid team being a potential Super Bowl contender, because they call football a game of inches for a reason. Like, one thing needs to go right, and all of a sudden the Chiefs don't make the playoffs, or Keon Coleman becomes the next reincarnation of Calvin Johnson and puts up a 2,000-yard. Like, there's so many random things that could occur that them making it to and winning the Super Bowl would not surprise me.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, is this hotter than Kyler Murray MVP?
Yeah, because if that happens, the Josh Allen wins MVP.
So move that down. It just keeps moving down.
Hmm?
We thought it was hot. Is it hotter than Drake London? I think it's hotter than that.
It's
but
hotter than that. Yeah.
I tell you what, you have more than a 1 in 32 chance because I guarantee the Panthers will not win the Super Bowl. So,
Hey,
Should have went there. That would have off the
the
charts.
Panthers win the Super Bowl.
Broke it. Would have broke it.
Should have gone with Bryce Young as a bounce back season, a top 15 quarterback. I messed up.
Yeah, well, you still have time.
I don't know if that'd be that hot. I'm just saying.
No, it's pretty hot.
Thank you.
But all right, cool. We feel medium about the Bills winning the Super Bowl. Evan, give us your last take of the evening.
Last take of the evening is gonna be trying to decide between two here. Give me.
Well, I tell you what. While you're deciding what to decide
Jacoby
on,
Brissett. We're going with Jacoby Brissett.
oh, I was going to talk about W, but you do you.
Oh, okay. Well, W might help me right now, trying to keep my energy up at work.
Yeah. Use code FFRPG at checkout.
Jitterless energy drink does great things for your body, keeps you awake for all those meetings you just want to take a nap through.
Yep, and it's FFRPG at checkout.
But yes, Jacoby Brissett will start 8 games this year.
I don't think that's that hot.
Okay.
Does anybody think that's a hot take?
I do. You're talking to Drake May's biggest fan over here.
I am Drake May's biggest fan.
I mean, I love Drake May too.
But coaches are stupid.
But the
No,
team's
to be honest, yeah, I think it is a hot take for 8 games. I mean, they're going to be out of it by like week 4. So
They'll be 0-4.
yeah.
I mean, so just okay. Let me go through the schedule here. All right, week
We
1,
did this on the AFC South breakdown.
I know. I mean, we're talking through this. Bengals, Seahawks, Jets. Okay, probably not ready yet. Then he goes to the 49ers.
Not starting them then.
Yeah. Then you have the Dolphins coming to them at Gillette. Maybe you give him the reins then. Then you have the Texans coming to Gillette. You go against the Jaguars, which is being played overseas. Probably not starting him in an overseas game.
Nope.
And then you get the Jets coming into Gillette. And then you get to week 9 when you have the cakewalk of the Titans.
I think week 9 makes a ton of sense. That's probably where this came from. I'm glad I could inspire you. I don't think this is that hot.
Yeah, I think the struggle is like you kind of got to there, Evan, of like, I was looking at it the other day because I was thinking about the same thing. Like, they don't have a good spot to start Drake May.
Week 9 against the Titans.
Their bye week is so early that it's kind of like, unless you've decided it's over, isn't it? Or is it late?
Yeah, the bye week's late in the season. I think they're
it's like 12 or 13,
or something.
14. That's what I saw. Yeah,
Yep.
Which would be almost too late to throw them to it. So I don't know, but I think 8. I think it's not that spicy because
I think you just got to send it and put the dog right into the fight and just let Drake May go lead the New England Patriots to the Super Bowl.
That would be a spicy take.
That would be a very spicy take. But I think Gerard Mayo is such a player's coach, and he's a guy who's been in situations where, you know, he's seen guys who necessarily were worse than others, you know, in his career in New England start over guys who deserve the job. And I think if in camp Drake May shows that he deserves the job, I don't see him choosing to let May sit in hopes of learning something by not playing.
So he's either the week 1 quarterback or the week 9 quarterback. No in between.
Pretty much.
I support that. So do we think this is more or less hot than Drake London being a top 15 receiver? Or not being a top 15 receiver? I don't think this is that hot at all.
No.
Yeah, I would say
it
is fair.
I can see it going either way, kind of like Jake said. Like, I mean, maybe May starts earlier. Maybe they just throw him to the Wolves. You know, maybe they're 0-4, 0-5, and they just say, let's see what this kid's got, and throw him out there because Jacoby Brissett's not the long-term answer. You know, maybe they want to see. Maybe they have interest in like Carson Beck or somebody like that. I wouldn't think they would, spending the capital on Drake May. But maybe they do say, hey, give it a shot. But I also think Sam Darnold plays a lot longer, also the whole season. So, and nobody likes me for that. So maybe Jacoby Brissett plays the whole season. I don't know. Both McCarthy and May need a little polishing. So,
all right. Before we get into this last take, I want to give you guys an opportunity. Jake, we'll start with you. Tell the people where to find you. Tell them where to follow you. Give them some love.
Yep, appreciate you guys for having me on today. You can follow me on Twitter at Perry_FF. All of my fantasy football content is through JWB Fantasy Football, which you can find on Twitter at JWB_FF. And then you should, while you're there and you're on my profile, you should consider checking out Knights of the Appropriately Shaped Table, which is a D&D session that we turned into a podcast that is run by our friend up there, Mike.
Hey, I do my best. Glad you're having fun. And Jeremy, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff over at ftnfantasy.com. It's all written, stuff like that. And then rankings, all that stuff's over there. On Twitter, you can find me at PopesFFH, and then the FTN Dynasty podcast as well.
Nice. Evan, where can they find you?
You can find me running the RPG Twitter account because I hate social media.
Yeah, refuse to have a personal one, just stealing Corey's. All right, last take of the evening. I wanted to make it a spicy one, and I hope you all agree with me, but I don't think Jake will. George Pickens. Do you guys know where this is going? Mm-hmm. He's a top 12 wide receiver, and I'll accept no feedback. Thanks for a great show, everybody. Bye.
You're so bland, Mike.
It's the most Mike take of all time.
Is there like a no sauce pick? Is that an option here?
Well, why is he going as wide receiver 29 then?
Because everybody's seen an Arthur Smith offense.
They've seen an Arthur Smith offense with Desmond Ridder, but have they seen one with Justin Fields?
They
saw it with Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, and who's a better quarterback, Ryan Tannehill or Justin Fields?
Be honest, Tannehill's a better quarterback.
But in all seriousness, if you take either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields' career numbers, you take George Pickens' target earning numbers, and you don't even have to use the ones without Deontay Johnson. There's a world where George Pickens gets 8 to 12 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards again, and he's just staring on your fantasy teams as your wide receiver 3, but is a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy.
If AJ Brown couldn't do it, I don't think George Pickens can.
AJ Brown did do it, I think twice.
You didn't say point per game.
Let me pull up the old sleeper app while you continue to roast me. But yeah, I think George Pickens is good.
I think George Pickens is good, but you think George Pickens is better than Drake London?
Yes.
Yeah, now
see where you're at.
That might be fighting words.
I mean, let's also remember the strength of schedule there. I mean, the reason he's going so low, I'm assuming you're picking out underdog ADP, Mike, is because
AJ Brown was a top 12 wide receiver.
The playoff schedule. They're seeing the playoff schedule. They're seeing how hard that's going to be. They also know that the Steelers have one of the hardest schedules in the league this year. So
they're playing from behind and they're in the ball out. Problem solved. Remember, if your team
doesn't do that.
If your team is playing ahead, you get more touchdowns. If your team's playing behind, you get more aired out yards. Any way that you string it, schedules are a good thing.
Unless you play in an Arthur Smith offense in which he keeps running the football.
Wow. Too late now. It's on the screen.
That should be ahead of Justin Fields, in my opinion. I think there's more worlds where Justin Fields is the starter than there is George Pickens as a top 12 wide receiver. And even if you absolutely love George Pickens, there's 20 wide receivers in the NFL at minimum who are more likely to do it than he is.
That's why he's going as wide receiver 29.
Yeah, that might be too high in my opinion.
I think he can be, what he has been, that wide receiver 2-ish range. I just don't see it. I mean, he's better than Cortland Sutton, so don't take it that way. But even Cortland Sutton with Russell Wilson, there was some touchdown viability there, but it was a different offense. Arthur Smith hasn't been able to make Drake London viable. He's going to make George Pickens viable. I love George Pickens. He was one of my favorite players at Georgia and coming out of college. So I get it, but I just don't see a world where there's less than 15 to 20, like Jake said, that are just better than him for fantasy.
Well, on that note, we've run out of time, but I want the listeners at home to listen and ponder for a moment. Was Arthur Smith bad, or is Desmond Ridder just bad? Have a lovely evening.